Hello everyone, welcome to the third video on the collection series. So in this opportunity, we're going to be talking about the list. So list would be probably the collection that you are more familiar with because you probably have been using already array lists. Now, what makes an array list special and why do we decide in most of the cases stop using arrays and moving towards an array list? Well, this is because of the list properties of a regular list. Any list will always have this set of characteristics that we're going to discuss now. Well, the first thing about the list is the size. The size would be flexible as opposed to an array. Once I define the size of the array, I cannot modify that. Now I can create another one and make it bigger, or another one and make it smaller, but modify the one that I have is not possible. So when it comes to a list, in a list, the size is flexible. The object itself adjusted its size. But it goes beyond that. One of the things that happen with the list as well is that it doesn't allow to have any gaps between the elements. That's something that doesn't happen in an array. So if you have an array, you have all your elements. If you remove somebody from the middle, well, that object leaves a gap in that section of the structures. Well, in the list, all the elements get reshuffled to avoid having that gap in there. I always like to illustrate this case with a small graphics. So suppose we have, this is a regular array. So I will have, for each one of the cells that I have in the array, I will have a given index, 0, 1, 2, whatever index it is. So I might have elements in here, I have elements in here, but these two might or not being empty. And that's what I mean by that the array list does not allow gaps. So how does that work? Well, the way it works is if my array list has one element, well, it will have one cell. But if you add another element, well, another cell gets created and another element is added to the list. If I add another element, the same thing happens. Now, if I remove one element in here, well, what is really going to happen is that this element and the cell gets removed, and now these two are going to be brought up together. So I will only have two elements and two cells in the array list. Now, there is something else that is important and relevant in this particular context. That for a list, and an array list being a list, the order of the elements is important, as opposed to the set where the ordering is not relevant. In a list, the order of the elements is actually relevant. So I will have some sort of index that defines what is the order in which the elements are added to the list. So getting back to the set of characteristics of a list, we can see there that the order is important, is specified by the user or the client class, but the elements can be accessed by their index because the order in the list is relevant. I can have duplicates, that's no problem, because the problem with the duplicates is in the set. In the list, we can actually have duplicate entries with no problem. But the most important attribute or characteristic of a list, there are no gaps in them. So some of the implementation would be the famous array list that we've done before. We've used it before, but we have also linked lists, stacks, and vectors. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you in practice how we use that. So we have here, again, just an empty Eclipse project, nothing there really. So I'm going to say list of strings. My list is equals to an array list of strings. And of course, I'm missing an import in there from the Java utility. And I'm missing here new. Perfect. And the import. So there they are. So I have a new list that is empty. So I can start adding elements to the list. So let's say, for example, I say my list that add Amilcar. Let's add a couple of elements. Greg. And let's say, for example, Mikhail and Lizzie. And finally, I can go and say system.out.println my list and run this. There they are. My elements are Amilcar, Greg, Mikhail, and Lizzie, and they have been added in the order in which the code is adding them. So if I try to add them all again, it won't be a problem because lists allow me to have duplicate entries, and the order in which the duplicate entries are going to come in is also the order in which they are added because it is relevant. Now, again, what I said about the index, so for example, something I can do is that I can get an element by the index. So I know, for example, Mihail in this case is in the index 2. So I can say system.out.println my list dot get index 2. If I do that, it would give me Mihail. There it is. But if I remove Mihail from index 2, which I can say my list that remove index 2 and try to add, undo, and try to print again whoever is in index 2, let's see what happens. So as you can see there, the first time index 2 is Mihail, but because I removed it, now the new index 2 is going to be Lizzie. So all of the elements that are after Lizzie are going to be shuffled, and now they're not shuffled, they're going to be moved. So to avoid to have a gap between Greg and Lizzie. So my new index 2 in this case would be Lizzie. Just one final thing that we can do, I can print the list again after the removal has been done. And I can see that now my list is a little bit smaller because I've removed Mikhail from position 2, and that Lizzie and Greg have been brought together because there is no gap between them. So something that I will encourage you to do is to try to explore other methods that the list has. So go my list dot and see what other methods they are and play with them just to make sure how they work. Now, in what situation would you use an array list? Well, you've seen how many times we've been using an array list. In all, if you are using an array, probably an array list would be a better option. Something where you don't know the number of elements that you will have, and where you want to be memory efficient because you don't want to be wasting with gaps in the middle. Okay, thank you for watching this video, and I see you in the next one.